It's our vision that downtown Ossining will once again become a central place of the community. The downtown will serve as a community social and cultural center. Downtown Ossining will be a vital and inviting place for those who seek diverse social and cultural experiences. Downtown Ossining will be a place where people come to enjoy meals at downtown existing and new restaurants, or just take a stroll along attractive, clean, and safe streets. Downtown Ossining will be a new business and civic hub that includes Main and Spring Streets, flanked by the new post office and our new police court facility. Downtown Ossining will be a place where people come to shop along long-established and newly established shops, or come to transact business at Ossining's burgeoning communications and technology firms, a venue which we must nourish and proliferate. Downtown Ossining will be a vital conduit to and from a reborn riverfront. Downtown Ossining will not be identical to what it once was, but it will be equally important in the life of Ossining. In addition to being a vision for the future, the plan we discuss here tonight is also a work in progress, intended to facilitate and accelerate the emergence of a new role for downtown Ossining. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I want to thank all of you who have come here tonight, all who have come to all of our series of our downtown vision meetings, which are quite a few people, and especially to those who have served on our committees. Hundreds of hours have gone into this effort, and they have all been well spent. A program of work has been developed that will keep the village busy well into the next century. Before we go any further, oh, good heavens to Betsy. Let's see you for a second. Yeah.
We're not going any further.
I saw that. The back door. Before we go any further, I would like to thank our planner, Ray Curran, for developing this vision plan, for helping us develop this vision plan and program, and for putting in so much time and effort. He has attended God knows how many meetings, many on his own time. We have one-person planning office where Ray has many assigned tasks in addition to our vision process. Thank you to Ray for all your thought and hard work. A special thanks to the Chamber of Commerce and the ADO for their close participation and support. I would like to thank the administration and the department heads who have been part of this task force and process. Mr. Shu, Rocco Circosta, and Chief Burton. Better Ways for Better Days Supervisor John Chervokas also has served as a member of our task force. Let me say that in addition to presentations, Ray has met individually with all of our trustees to review this plan. We thank the Board of Trustees who established the program for their time and interest. Particularly, we thank Trustee Penny Markowitz-Moses, who has served, as you see, as a member of this task force. Let me tell our committee people that your task force has had many meetings, including 6 to 9 dinner meetings, which the mayor fed the committee. With all the members of the task force, I'd like to ask all of you please to stand up and be recognized. They are Paul Shu, the village manager, Ray Curran, the planner, Peter Gendron, the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce, Rocco Circosta, director of operations, Jeff Stern from the ADO, Chief Joseph Burton, Penny Markowitz-Moses, village trustee, and John Chervokas, Also, the advisory, the most important members of the committee, Rachel Ginsberg, Maureen Morgan, Gus Barenberg, Maureen Redmond, and Jacqueline Weir, who represented the committees on the task force. We thank you all for the many, many hours that you put in after the committee's finished and during that process. Thank you very much. Yes. Is Debbie Van Steen here? Debbie, you come forward, please. Very good.
Okay, so take the power.
This young lady has served as a part-time, full-time intern at no pay for the village of Ossining. She put in many, many hours. She certainly has coordinated all the events, sent out mailings. She was going to go to White Plains. She's getting her master's degree, right? Hopefully. And they were going to pay her in White Plains, but she figured that she'd rather put the time in here in Ossining, in her own community. And she's also now working for the ADO. We'd like to thank her for all of her hard work. Let's give her a large round of applause. The vision plan that we take the final testimony for here tonight is, in addition to a plan, very much a process, a work in progress. A process which you will see that the vision plan itself establishes venues to carry out the vision plan and to review progress. Please remember that the process that we established after the first forum, we established committees. We held a forum after phase 1. After phase 2, the committee work was turned over to the task force, which was charged to refine the proposals. The process calls for the task force to add or subtract, as well as define the vision plan. And it had representation from all of the committees. One item recommended by the task force under the business development was the police court facility. For those of you who may be sensitive to that, who were not part of it was not mentioned by the committees, we may be able to put it somewhere else in the report, but it is within the purview of the task force to add that to that particular venue. Please note that the vision plan recommends, and indeed already have been established, these venues. First, an historic review commission is proposed that will review all plans for downtown and will develop guidelines for facades and buildings on the work of the committee that the committee has already done, and the substantial body of work that was done by this committee. 2, a public relations committee has already been established and has been set up a subcommittee called Ossining is Happening, which you may have already heard about and seen. It was a TV show which Jackie Weir and Peter Gendron co-hosted last week, which has been on all week. Hope you have been able to catch it. If not, please do. They were our new TV stars. A subcommittee that outlined by the Business Development and Public Relations Committee is now developing this clearinghouse for happenings and events using GoTV PSA apparatus. Also, the committee is completing plans for at least 10 bulletin boards, as recommended by the PR committee, to be strategically placed around the village for residents and tourists alike. A newsletter of some kind will be developed. The committee will ensure that Ossining happenings, once the best-kept secret, will be promulgated to residents and the rest of the world. All of the other aspects of the Public Relations Committee will be assigned to the Public Relations Committee itself. A partnership between the village, the Chamber of Commerce, and the ADO will take on all of the economic development issues as a partnership outlined in the vision plan. A Market Square Committee has been framed out that will assist the village in operating the Market Square. As you know, this committee will be seeing the fruits of its labors very soon. At the urging of the Business Development and Public Relations Committee, who recommended that time was a-wasting and we should begin working on obvious items and not wait for the report. All of this is not to mention individual efforts that we will see. A Chamber of Commerce effort with the guide that we will see by April 1st, right in the middle of April at least, which will be an excellent booklet on Ossining. Our TOC effort, we'll see the clock, the bank with the clock actually tell time. Not to mention the post office, streetscape work, parking areas, Spring Street one-way, and a more self-sustaining Flower Village program. Did I say one-way? Oops, two-way. And a more self-sustaining Flower Village program, which is already in progress for downtown and other areas of the village. Following this meeting, we will ask the Vision Task Force to meet one more time, sorry folks, to review any final recommendations we receive here tonight or from the Board of Trustees. The report is now in a form for presentation tonight and will be put in a form suitable for outside presentation. After final review, the approval by the Board of Trustees, the final plan will be put in binders that will include the vision plan and all the original committee reports, I repeat, and all the original committee reports. It will be placed in the library, copies of the ADO, the Chamber, the Municipal Building, and other places of gathering in the community. The task force will be called back into session from time to time to review progress. We ask that the ADO and the Chamber also conduct review of progress, which we are sure they will. The plan will be presented by the Board of Trustees to the administration for preparation by the manager and staff for implementation. Most importantly, our downtown will take the shape of this vision plan, which more than a document is a desire of all who participate and the entire village of Ossining. We have seen much of the implementation has already begun, but we are just beginning. There are dozens of solid recommendations in this report. Many are simple recommendations, such as fixing up the sidewalks and streetscape and making the downtown a clean, pleasant, and safe place to stroll. We have surprised ourselves with the scope of the work so far, but our work is now cut out for us. We discovered in this process that Ossining is already, downtown Ossining is already a good place to be. Working together, we will make it better. A long story of Ossining's downtown has already started a very new and vital chapter. I would now turn the program over to our planner, Ray Curran. Yeah, we're going to have to.
Is that my phone? You go, you all right, John?
Good evening. I want to thank the mayor and all the individuals who participated in this process. It's been truly a collective process, and I think the product is really a collective product. For me, it's been a very enjoyable process and gratifying. I'm very happy with the results, and I hope that you will feel the same. As the mayor said, the product of this process is something that is not just a product that we put on a coffee table, but it's a process that's an ongoing process. We've identified many mechanisms to continue the process and to complete a lot of the ideas that have been developed in embryonic form, as well as to implement some of the ideas that we have finalized. So it's as much, as Tom said, a process as it is a product, and I hope that you will be supportive in the coming months and years in the implementation of this process. So, with no further ado, what I'd like to do is to rapidly go through the recommendations. What you have in front of you at this point is one-line summations of the recommendations. As the mayor said, we will be providing, we have already produced a report which describes these recommendations in some detail. But pending the final presentation tonight and your feedback and the final review of your feedback with the task force and the Board of Trustees, we will produce the final version of the report for your use. So let me get on very rapidly with the recommendations. I'm going to run through that and try to finish in some kind of reasonable amount of time so that there will be lots of time afterwards. Well, first of all, we're going to have a presentation by Jackie Weir on the public relations and business development aspects of the report. And then after that, hopefully, a lot of time, plenty of time for any questions that you might have. So, getting on with the recommendations, the first item in the report concerns the Market Square. I think most of you are familiar with that project, and the model, which sits in the back, is a pretty accurate representation of what the actual project is going to be like. So rapidly, we're talking about the landscaping of about half of the existing parking lot, which will remain, which will leave about 26 parking spaces, permanent parking spaces, in the back of the square. In this area here is where the parking spaces will remain. The front portion of the square along Main Street and Spring, next, is where the square itself will be. This square is conceived as a space for activities. It's intended specifically to be able to house a variety of different types of special events, which is the intention that we had for the square from the beginning. We want it to be something that will attract people to the downtown. The farmers market will continue to occur, and it will occur in the portion that remains as a parking lot in the back, an area which is in fact larger than the area that they currently occupy, so the farmers market will continue to be a very important and vital piece of this attraction, and hopefully there will be activities occurring on the landscape portion of the square even during the farmers market. This is a representation of, well, it's a rather bad photograph of the model that's back there showing what we will be getting. This represents all the elements that we will be getting, and construction we are hoping will get underway in about 3 weeks' time. The square will involve, as I say, vending events. The farmers market will continue to occur. And there will be a variety of additional elements that we will want to be adding to the square probably in the future. Next. This is the current farmers market. Okay, next. And special events like the village fair will now be able to occur partly in this space. Now, the elements that could likely be incorporated into the square in the coming years include a utility building, which would be for support and storage. That's this small structure in the back over here, which we would need to support some of the activities that occur in the square. A decorative and drinking fountain could occur in the front over here. An information kiosk is proposed in this area over here. Model, flagpoles in the front, a stage canopy in the back over here. An events tent would be something that could potentially be very desirable, and that would occur in this area here, which is outlined in a pattern fashion there. And there would be probably a need for stage lighting and sound system. This is just an example of how we might begin to think of our fountain. This is similar to the kind of kiosk which I think we're thinking about. This is a potential version of a stage canopy that we could be looking into. This is in a square, very, very similar to the one that we're proposing here in Portland, Maine. Okay, before we go on to this next section here, let me mention quickly that, as the mayor mentioned, we are proposing to appoint a Market Square Management Committee or board to oversee the events that would be occurring. And let me mention at this point that if there are any individuals who can foresee an event of some kind, staging an event, sponsoring an event in the square, I think you can already get in touch with the Parks Department, Laura Safra in particular, and she will see to it that we get back to you and help you to visualize and conceptualize this event. There are a number of events that are being considered, as well as ones that already exist that will simply be transposed into the square. As far as maintenance is concerned, the regular maintenance of the new square will be done by the village forces as well as local volunteer groups, and maintenance of special events will be something that will be the responsibility of sponsors, as is the case right now when there are events in the parks. So let me go on to the next section, which concerns the improvement of the sidewalks. A number of things we are proposing for the improvement of the pedestrian areas, the sidewalks and crossings, etc., are things that we could be doing in the fairly near future. One of them is the idea of widening the sidewalks at a number of critical points where crossings occur. And what that would do is to narrow the length of the crossing and therefore make the connection between the north side and the south side of Main Street a whole lot easier. That's what this represents over here at the top of Main Street and Route 9. There's one here at the Aqueduct. What it represents is a bulging out of the sidewalk in those points, at those points. Those are points right now that are no parking zones. Where, as I say, the pedestrian crossings occur. Unfortunately, what tends to occur, if any of you have noticed, is that they have become loading zones. And so not only are they lengthening the crossing for pedestrian, but they become actually quite dangerous because of the fact that you're always having to duck around a truck in order to actually get into the crossing. So that's one of the things that we're proposing. We're proposing also the introduction of some new pedestrian crossings where they're needed and don't exist. One is over here at the juncture of Central Avenue and Brandreth, which, as I say, doesn't have a crossing right now. There isn't a crossing over here between across Spring Street. We're going to have a new lane cutting through there when we introduce the Spring Street two-way, so we're going to need another crossing there. In addition to that, we're going to be looking at the upgrading of some of the linkages between Main Street and the parking lots. I'll get to that in a moment. Let's go on to this notion, this idea of expanding the sidewalks in those critical points. This is at that crossing at Main Street and Route 9, and as you can see, inevitably there seems to be a truck parked in that area. This is a close-up of what we are proposing to do in that area, which, as you can see, is to just blow out the sidewalk beyond the existing line of the sidewalk. And what that does is effectively cut the pedestrian crossing almost in half. This is a shot of that same location with two of our more illustrious residents standing in the street. And as you will see, miraculously, what happens with this proposal is that it takes them from that precarious location and magically, in the next slide, puts them on a sidewalk without actually having moved them. So as you can see, this is something which I think would greatly enhance the pedestrian quality and the usability, which is really what we're trying to talk about here. If you could go back to just a moment for that. One idea here that came out of the Public Relations Committee, in which we incorporated here, is a sign that lets people know for the first time that we actually have a historic district here. We have a nationally listed historic district. That's a fairly significant listing because there are not that many in the country. And it's something which appears to be, for a lot of people, almost a secret in Ossining, and yet it's something of great significance. And so if we were to put a sign like that, I think we could begin to let the thousands of people who drive by every day know that we actually have a historic district here in Ossining. The other thing here that we'll speak about later as well is that we could begin in these expanded sidewalk areas to put permanent planting areas. Okay. Now a few more examples. Here we are, Maureen Morgan again standing in the street, and in the next slide, once again, she is saved from being run over. Interesting thing that she and I found when we were doing this is that when she stood there at the peril of her life, lo and behold, cars actually came to a dead stop, which is an interesting idea, because what it really does, what it really said to us is that if people are visible, the cars do stop. The trouble with their standing back here is that they're totally invisible. They're totally cut off. Next. And a few more examples. Maureen is living through this process. I want you to know she's sitting up here, so she made it. Okay, next slide. That is at the corner of Spring and Main, and that will be directly across from our new Market Square. So that's going to be one spot where the connection between the two sides of the street is going to be tremendously valuable, I think, in terms of access. And finally, on the other side of the Spring and Main Street connection, once again, we have this expansion that makes it so much more easy. Okay, next. Now, as I said, some of the other things that we're proposing are those pedestrian crossings and the improvement of connections between the Main Street area and the parking lots in the back. Next. Let's see, I think I'm slightly...
No, that's the parking site, right?
Okay, this is an indication of the location where we want to create a pedestrian connection, which now doesn't occur at the corner of Brandreth and Main. So we would be talking about an extension between this area and that area here, which would now be a lot shorter because of that expanded area over here. This is an indication of the modifications that we're going to be looking at to the brick bands that occur across the sidewalks up and down Main Street. There are about 50 of them, and as a lot of you know, they've become somewhat broken up. They're pulling up out of the ground and are becoming hazards. And so we are going to be removing those altogether and replacing them with a surface that is basically a concrete surface, and which will be next done in, here's another show of a lot of these that are beginning to fall apart. The concrete will be done in this fashion over here. This is the concrete stripes. These are the concrete stripes that occur across the street right now. They're concrete that have been colored, and we're going to be using that same kind of technique, so it will be consistent. And then the use of planting on the street, we're suggesting that in the longer run, we should begin to look at more permanent planters that can be maintained year-round, and as you see in this case, something that can actually be used in wintertime with various kinds of greens. Furniture, we're talking about standardizing the furnishing, and these are examples of the kinds of furnishing that we're going to be using in the square, and which we're going to be standardizing for use downtown everywhere. And street lighting, I also wanted to mention, is something that we will be improving, that we will be adding to, I should say. We will be adding street lights around the Market Square, in the Market Square, and around the new post office. And this is an indication of the links that we want to improve. This is the Aqueduct, and a problem here has been that the linkage and visibility of the parking lots from this access way have been has been rather poor, and so we're in the process already of improving that. Some of these overgrown shrubs we have removed. There was an old fence there, and next we're proposing to actually introduce a ramp at this point here through this area, which, as you can see already now, has been cleared. The ramp will occur from here down to there, which is in fact where a lot of people are walking already. The advantage of that ramp, however, is that it's going to provide the possibility of delivery trucks and vans using their little carts and rolling their carts up to Main Street, and that'll provide us the possibility of getting some of those service vans off Main Street and into the back parking areas. This is an indication of that service ramp over here that we're proposing to build. In addition to that, we're talking about the possibility of recommending, we are recommending that a new pedestrian link be incorporated into whatever reconstruction might occur on that site where the fire occurred. And that would be connecting to that parking lot in the back. Next. Now, one of the concerns that came up in the committees is the problem of cleanliness on Main Street. And this is something that we see as being very critical in improving the livability and the attraction of downtown. So one of the things we're going to be doing is eventually removing and replacing these garbage containers with the type that I showed you earlier, and that are more attractive and much more user-friendly. These have proven to be problematic and very difficult to deal with, and they seem to always be overflowing. So this is something we've decided to recommend a change of that. In addition to that, we're talking about a change in the trash collection schedule. It's been indicated that collections on Mondays is not a good idea because trash remains on the sidewalks from Friday night till Monday morning. So we will be introducing a change that will make the trash collection schedule a Tuesday and Friday schedule instead of a Monday and Thursday. And in addition to that, the task force and committees recommended that we develop some standards for trash receptacles so that we're not ending up with plastic bags all over the streets, but that we have very specific specifications for trash receptacles. Okay, the next section deals with traffic and circulation. One of the first things that we have recommended that we move forward with is the conversion of Spring Street to a two-way traffic. So that will require the construction of a turning lane at the juncture of Spring and Main. Could you see if that can be focused a little bit? It's not very clear to begin with, I guess. And it will also require the removal of 17 parking spaces along Lower Main Street in this area here, and on the west side of Spring Street, in order to be able to get two ways in through here. One of the sides of parking will have to be removed in this area, in this portion of the street here. We will be retaining the parking on that side there. Next.
Before you go up there, just go back to that for a second. I apologize. There was some talk about taking parking places up Main Street. That is not going to happen.
No, that isn't.
Also, the traffic signal itself, on a trial basis, we will not have to make a major investment in that. We're looking at possibly using a turning lane. So we can actually test this out for a year or so to find out if it works as well.
Right. The initial study that was done for us to determine whether Spring Street was a viable thing suggested that we create an additional turning lane on Main Street over here, a left turning lane. That would have necessitated eliminating the parking all along the south side of Spring Street over here. And when we examined that and went back to the consultants, we did determine that we could potentially do this conversion without actually having that if we were to restrict those left turns onto Spring Street during rush hour in the morning. In other words, keep it essentially the way it is today during that an hour and a half rush hour in the morning. Otherwise, it'll become two-way without, as the mayor said, necessitating a major change in the light, the traffic light ahead, which it could conceivably be quite an expensive undertaking. Next. Now, the next concept and recommendation is something that is an idea that I've been hearing about since I've been here, and which I think a number of people have considered to be something worth exploring. At this point, we are proposing to the Board of Trustees that they request a study. There is a study that's going to be done of Route 9 corridor by the Department of State, the Department of Transportation. And one of the suggestions that, the suggestion that has been made, that has been emerging over here, is that because it's only this portion of Route 9 in the village that has been widened, there isn't all that much sense to actually having that kind of a vast asphalt canyon cutting through the center of the village, since it gets reduced again north and south of this area here. So we do think there is a belief that perhaps this is an overkill that was part of a project that was never realized beyond this portion, and that potentially is not really something that is essential or necessary even. And so we are suggesting that that the study look at the possibility of reducing the width of this road, perhaps eliminating a lane, reintroducing parking, and also at the same time facilitating pedestrian crossing from one side to the other, which has really been one of the major issues as well. Next. Looking at it on both sides, that we are suggesting that the DOT look at the question of perhaps reducing this from 5 lanes back to maybe 3 lanes, and see whether or not that would, what kind of an impact that would have. Here we have the heroic crossing that some people have to do across 5 lanes of traffic, and it certainly is something that it functions as a tremendous barrier between the two sides. Next. People tremble across this various times a day. Okay. The next thing that I'd like to get onto is the issue of some of the additional recommendations, I should say, with regards to parking, involves the relining of all the parking in all the lots by the village forces. This is something which we felt was cutting back tremendously on the amount of parking options. And the other thing is the improving of lighting, especially in the parking lot behind the Crescent. And that is something that we have already put into process. Now, as far as parking is concerned, could we look at the next slide? I think they are out of sequence. Yeah, but let's back up to the slide that shows the plan, Laura. I think we're going to have to go back, unfortunately. It's a little bit out of sequence. I'm going to just go back to the plan. Okay. This is a plan that shows all of the parking lots in the village, and the study the committee did on that was very helpful, because it helped us to get a better understanding of how parking is used today and what kind of opportunities we have to improve it. I've mentioned a couple of the things that we could do already to improve parking, but in addition to that, we are proposing some changes in the way some of the lots are configured and how they're used. One of the things that we did discover in the study is that while some of the parking lots, the ones that are in the center, this one and this one here on the corners of Main and Spring, and one of the ones in back of the Crescent here, as well as the one next to the community center down here and around the community, the municipal building, while those are used very heavily, 85% plus all the time, there are a number of other parking lots, such as the ones down here and here, one of the ones in back of the Crescent, and one over here, these two over here, that are used very, very little. Oftentimes there are no more than 4 or 5 cars in these parking lots. And while it does seem as if we have a shortage of parking in the village, the reality is that we have over 100 spaces in the village parking lots that are never used. And so I think before we start looking at ways of increasing the parking capacity in the village, it's important to try to find ways of more efficiently using the parking spots that we already have. So some of the changes that we're recommending here, some of the modifications, involve changes to lot number, it's actually 5. That parking lot, which adjoins the new post office, will increase, and what we're showing here is the full development of that parking lot from 46 to 80 spaces. And that includes 18 new spaces for the post office, which is for 15 minutes. Of the 62 public spaces that will remain in the total parking lot, we're suggesting to increase the number of spaces to 34 that would be for short-term parking. In other words, we're looking at ways of improving in the immediate vicinity of Main Street the capacity for short-term visitors. The same is true on the parking lot adjoining the proposed Market Square, which we said, which I mentioned earlier, would be 26 spaces. We're suggesting that 21 of those be made into short-term or 2-hour parking, and only 5 left for tag. Now, in the allocation, in the lots, lot D3, which is down in here on Spring Street, we're suggesting that that be changed from 15 2-hour and 2-hour parking and 16 tags to 21 2-hour and 10 tags. So we're trying to encourage the use of parking lots that are very accessible for short-term parking, and we're trying to encourage the use of the parking lots that are now virtually empty for daytime, full daytime parking. And that includes this parking lot over here, these two over here, and possibly one of the ones at the top. And one of the suggestions that we've come up with here is to reduce the annual parking fee on those lots, while possibly increasing the parking fees on the tag parking in the lots right off Main Street. The figures for that, in terms of the total numbers of parking spots, I have included on one of the illustrations over here, and it will be in the report. Another thing that we've also suggested, that we will be suggesting, is to create new day tags for guest parking. This is one of the things that seems to be a shortage of, or a need for, is a form of day tag that can be purchased ahead of time in the form of a booklet of tickets that can be used by the businesses in the Main Street area for day-long visitors. Okay, next. These are some of the lots that I mentioned. This is one that is off State Street. As you can see, there's like 3 or 4 cars in there. Next. And this is the one on Spring Street in St. Paul, which never has more than 4 or 5 cars. And again, example of a couple of lots, that one and the next one on Waller Avenue down here are virtually empty all the time. So these are lots that we do have, and that are just not used. Let me also mention that with the transference of the police department from the municipal building to Spring Street over here, that will also help to reallocate parking options close to the Main Street corridor, because right now the police department has 15 allocated spots over here that will be moved out of that. And in addition to that, there are 38 spots in that parking lot, many of which are used in conjunction with the court and police department. All of that will be moved into this area here, which means that those parking lots around the municipal building will become usable on a daily basis in a way that they're not today. Okay, next. And here is, of course, the beginnings of that 80 spot parking lot. We're about halfway there at the moment. Next. Those are the two lots that I mentioned are currently mostly underutilized, close to where the police department is going to be. Next. Another thing that we're suggesting is that we begin to introduce some screening in front of the large parking lots, the municipal parking lots. That's something that we typically require from private applicants when they develop parking facilities, parking lots adjoining the street. That's to try to reduce the impact of these large asphalted areas from view. And so these are areas here at the municipal building on both sides of Croton Avenue where that could occur in through here and here. Typically we would require screening in those areas if these were private parking lots. Next. And here are two more locations where screening could occur. I have a photo montage on the next slide that shows how that possibly could look if we were to introduce screening and perhaps even trees that would begin to soften the impact of that kind of area. Next. We will also, this is an example of how screening can very effectively soften the appearance of a parking lot. It simply eliminates view of it. Okay, next. In terms of parking, an additional suggestion that we've made is to identify a location where a parking facility, a multi-level parking facility could occur in the future when it becomes clear that the demand for parking does indeed exceed the capacity that we now have. In other words, when new buildings are developed in the vacant sites right now downtown, there will be need for additional parking beyond the capacity that we have. And we've identified this lot, or these two lots in the back of the Crescent, as probably the most logical place to develop this kind of facility. Next. Okay, let me just mention a couple of additional items. One of the things that is missing before we get on to this next section here on facades is, with regards to parking, is signage. Signage to the parking lots, to the municipal parking lots, is really not adequate. It's not visible, and it really doesn't effectively communicate the location of these lots. So that's one thing we're going to be recommending be improved. Let me also mention that in terms of parking, we've already talked about the improvement in parking, or the increase in parking that would occur if we were to make a modification to Route 9. We haven't even counted what that would represent, but we're talking somewhere between 50 and 100 new cars, new parking spots, if that change were to occur. So that certainly would make a significant impact on the downtown area. And in terms of security improvements, that was an issue. We have looked at the idea of increasing both foot and bike patrol in the downtown area, and that's something that has been ongoing, and which I'm assured by Chief Burton will continue. And also the improved the cleanliness of the and illumination of the parking lots. Those are two things that we believe will also improve the sense of security downtown. Let me also mention one thing that I failed to mention earlier with regards to cleanliness. One additional recommendation we've made is to provide by the village forces a once a week cleaning of all the sidewalks downtown. That's something that people really believed was essential and which we've already started doing on a regular basis. And it will become an ongoing program that will also involve cleaning of the parking lots on a regular basis. So I think that is going to begin to make a pretty significant difference. Okay, now let me go on to the third section, which concerns building facades and guidelines. As the mayor mentioned, one of the things that we recommend to the board is that they designate the Historic Review Commission as the body to review applications for the downtown historic district area. That's something that is not the case now, in which we think would be essential to safeguarding the historic character of the downtown area. Now, the other thing which is clearly essential is to develop develop guidelines for what that historic district, what the facade should be like. I should also mention the treatment of the sides of buildings and the back of the buildings on Main Street are all seen as being essential. And this committee looked at various kinds of guidelines that exist and studies that have been done for Ossining in the years past. And we found that we don't really need to reinvent the wheel. This is a wheel that was invented a long time ago. And there already are quite a few pretty substantial guidelines out there that we can use. And what we're going to need to do, what this new commission is going to need to do, is to participate in the development of some kind of a booklet that demonstrates what those guidelines are, and which they themselves will then use in the assessment of proposals for work on the facades, as well as new construction, I might mention. This is one example of the kind of guidelines that have been developed in some other locations. And the next shot is of a portion of Main Street where, as you will see following this, guidelines were developed several years ago as to how this, especially the ground level, is in particular, could be treated in the event of an application. Next slide. This is a drawing of that comes out of that booklet that was done for Ossining, and the next slide shows how that ground level could be treated in a way that would be consistent with the historic character of that period. Next. So we're basically talking about a guideline that will deal with historic facade elements, color options, awnings, window design, building alignments, rear of buildings, rear entrances, facilities for rear garbage collection, etc., and signage. And one of the things that we discussed with regards to signage is the idea of reintroducing hanging signs in the historic district. And this is an example of that type of thing in some other location, but very much what we're thinking about, and this is something that could be simply added to the sign code that we have today. Next. Here are just a couple of examples. This is in Newburyport, Massachusetts, and it's something which I think most people feel pretty interested in and believe would enhance the character of the downtown area. And again in Newburyport, Massachusetts. As I say, one of the things which needs to be dealt with in that guidebook concerns not just facades, but the walls that are left when buildings are torn down. These vast blank walls that have become all too numerous in the downtown area and which don't have got great historic character to them, to say the least. I think that there are things that we can do to minimize at least the visible impact of these things. There are ways that they can be treated that can help to make it look less, kind of abandoned city type quality. Next. Okay, before I move on and let Jackie take over with the last section, I just would like to, before I do that, let me just mention one more thing. In addition to that, with regards to the facades, one of the things that the committee and task force recommended is that we propose a new tax incentive program for improvements to historic facades. This is something that is a feasible program, and that would certainly, we believe, help to encourage people to redevelop their facades. So before Jackie takes over, let me just close by mentioning that a number of these things, as the mayor said, are underway. We have started the project, the proposals, the ideas, the program for revitalizing downtown is underway. We all know about the post office, and we know that there is a market square that is coming to this location within 3 weeks. And we know that we are expanding our parking facilities, and we've started that already. And there are interventions like signs that Laura Safa has been involved with on the Aqueduct that begin to highlight this remarkable historic phenomenon coming through the heart of our village, and which most people don't even realize is traversing the heart of our village, and which is therefore a historic facility that we're not benefiting from in terms of people even realizing that it exists here. Okay, so, and there are facades that are being done already. There are people who are beginning to improve their facades, such as this one here. And we think that with that and things like a new regulation that allows sidewalk cafes to occur now, that we have begun a program, and there are changes that are beginning to occur. So hopefully some of the recommendations we've made will begin to really snowball into something that people do feel represents a change is happening in downtown finally. Okay, so thank you very much, and I'm now going to turn it over to Jackie, who's going to go through some of the recommendations for publication.
Thank you, Ray. I have no beautiful slides, and that's probably part of what public relations should be all about. I'm going to be talking about letting everyone else know, as well as the rest of the town, what we're going to be doing, what is already existing in downtown Ossining, and why it's a secret, and we don't want it to be a secret any longer. There are going to be changes within the next year, and part of the reason for the Public Relations Committee and the Business Development Committee was to look at how to let the businesses in the area know that we're out there to support them, as well as to let the public know that there are great things happening in Ossining. I'm just going to briefly go through some of the recommendations that are listed under the Public Relations and Business Development. As you might have already seen, a lot of work has already started that was recommended by the Public Committee. The Public Relations and Business Development Committee was composed of a lot of different members of the community, both with long-time histories in Ossining as well as new members that gave new light into some of the simple things that could be done to increase the visibility as well as to assist with public and business development. Let me first begin on something that was noted by a newcomer, that there are no welcoming signs to both the north, south, the train station, welcoming outsiders as well as when you get off the train, that you're back in Ossining, and this is a historical area. That was one of the first things we recommended, and that's already being looked into at this point. Adopt a district name for the downtown area. I know that Ray pointed that out in one of his slides earlier. Possibility of using the crescent sign again to point out the historical landmark district of Main Street. Adopt a village motto. There's been one that's been used in the past. You'll see it on GoTV at this point. People still use it from time to time. Ossining, old in history, new in spirit. local events, bulletin boards at various locations in the village. Communications, I feel, not only with the public that come and the tourists that come to visit, but also with our own citizens. We have to let them know what's going to be going on in this new market that's going to be downtown on their main street. We've incorporated about 10 sites throughout the village area that are going to have bulletin boards, as well as the plan of a new kiosk in the main street market square. There's been talk of a website for Ossining. This is an opportunity for people that are coming into town to find out a little bit about what's going on, as well as communications within the town itself. Development of seasonal banners. These are just a few of the recommendations that the PR committee, the chamber, and the Alliance for Downtown Ossining, along with the town, will be trying to implement so as to increase the great visibility that Ossining needs at this point. Last part that I'm going to go into is what the outcome of all of these things are going to generate, which is business development. Once we start putting the word out, we have the word out that Ossining is changing, that Ossining is taking the positive things from the past and developing on them and building good PR within the existing businesses. We now want to create business development. With the location of the police department down on the Spring Street, it will add to our downtown area, completing Main Street and Spring Street into a larger business area. The creation of a database for the real estate agents so that they know what sites are available, so that when someone comes to town, that's easily accessible, and what other offices and businesses can support their business, which they are thinking to bring into town. The development of the Ossining Guide, which was mentioned earlier by Tom, which has been undertaken by the Chamber and which will be out in a short month. The promotion of the community and the government and the various volunteer organizations to work together. There are so many great things going on in Ossining. A lot of it's being repeated. A lot of energy is not focusing together. One of the things is to have public meetings to inform various groups what are going on and how each other can assist. The creation of a guidebook. This is something that Ray is working on, a more friendly, user-friendly zoning and planning regulations guide, so that we can give it to potential new businesses as well as the existing businesses so that they can abide by the regulations. The development and the building of the guidelines for the We Can Do It site. We have the opportunity of having a say in the central location of Main Street right now, and we need to develop some kind of guidelines in which we want to use that vacant lot. A more friendlier pedestrian area on Main Street. This is not only with the shortening, I guess, of the distance that people have to cross and putting flowers down there and not tripping over bricks, but also to encourage more variety in restaurants, to bring in more cultural events, try to get more foot traffic, to bring down that old idea of walking again on Main Street, the reason to come down to Main Street to use this. And last but not least, as mentioned earlier, communications is not most between all aspects of both the downtown, not only the village, but also the Alliance for Downtown Ossining, the Chamber of Commerce, the Ossining Arts Council, numerous other organizations who have been putting a great forth of work over the last couple of years trying to build the downtown, and we want to continue working together with one common vision. That's all I have to say this evening about where the PR and business relationship is going. I'd like to turn it back over to Tom.
Thank you very much, Jen. Okay, now we come to the portion of the meeting. Yeah. We're back a little bit, yes. Where we invite anyone who would like to make a comment, ask a question, to come forward and come forward to the mic. Just state your name if you represent an organization or represent yourself, fine, and impart us with words of wisdom or ask your question. Who would like to start us off?
I'm
Jim Blair, just representing myself. You mentioned the possibility of having garbage collection at the rear of the buildings in the future. What is it that is standing in the way of doing that now?
At the top of the crescent, most of the buildings where there are inhabitants, and even some of the businesses, do not have, believe it or not, rear entrances. They would have to be constructed or put in. Some of them do, and as Ray mentioned, with some of the access ways to the rear of the buildings, by improving them, we hope also by telling the businesses to try to, even considering an ordinance, to have rear deliveries, and to put the garbage in the rear where there is a rear entranceway. That's something we could do, but you'd be amazed at the number of buildings, especially the top of the crescent, from the promenade up. Most of those buildings do not have a rear access especially for the people who live above the stores. Peter?
So the lower end of Main Street is...
Literally none, that's true.
The lower end of Main Street. I just turn it up.
Also, in our investigation, we found that on the lower end of Main Street, there's a solid embankment behind it, so there is no rear access, no matter how people modify the structure or anything else, for trash removal or deliveries into the rear of the buildings on the lower part of Main Street. From Rim's building on down, it's a solid embankment over the backside, so I think that's what they used to do.
Yes, Mr. Wolf.
Bob Wolf, village resident. I'd like to thank the mayor, the village board, Chamber of Commerce, ADO, many members of task force, police department, the many members of the task force. We may not all agree with some of the individual issues, but I think people rolling up their sleeves, taking action, and not being spectators, I think this is a heck of a job. Ray, super job for everyone there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Come on now, who's next? No other questions? There you go.
Hi, my name is Michael Peach. I'm a village resident. Connected to the development of the downtown, I wondered if there are plans for the waterfront. In particular, we were talking about garbage collection a minute ago. The parks down there often get quite filthy during the summer, and it makes going to picnic there quite unpleasant. Is increased cleanliness down there a priority?
Yes, that's something, well, we certainly mentioned to the town, which does Engel Park, and I see our recreation superintendent shaking your head. The new park, or the new park area, you could say, at Harbor Square, I think has been pretty good so far, but certainly that's something we can look at. Not only that, but the cleanliness of the station and the whole railroad station itself. I see someone just perked up when I said that. Thank you. One of the things that you heard me mention briefly, the transition between the downtown and the waterfront. Certainly, we know that these are certainly two ends of an axis that we are very closely related, and improving the waterfront, which we are in the process, as you know, of doing, and improving the downtown will potentiate each other. And we are emphasizing that we've been moving our flower program down into, and some of the other programs down into the lower Main Street area. We're reminded by those merchants that they're part of the Main Street also. So hope to, certainly the actions that we're taking at both ends here, I think as you followed some of the things in the paper, acquisition of land and some additional parkland, open space for the riverfront, that will, and hopefully potentially development on the riverfront will certainly help the tax base and serve as, the downtown serves as a conduit to that, and vice versa. They certainly are potentiate each other. Yes, Mrs. Doyle?
Thank you. I'm Joan Doyle. I'm a resident of the Village of Ossining, and I am the former chairperson of the Public Relations and Business Development Committee, having served from May 1997 through the beginning of January of 1998, when I had resigned because of other work commitments. I want to certainly acknowledge Mayor Cambereri, who was the prevailing impetus behind putting this task force in motion, and also thank the previous and the now sitting village board for going forward with creating the task force and for letting it run its course. But in every organization, in every group, there's always one person who is going to play devil's advocate and who is going to perhaps be a little bit more critical, and perhaps now that task tonight falls to me. So if you will bear with me. I preface these remarks because I spent 7 months of my time along with my committee members who were very devoted, spent a lot of time, gave a lot of creative energy to this process, as every other member of the other 3 committees did, and the task force and the administration of the Village of Ossining. I suppose because I participated in the last forum, that I was somewhat taken aback when I received my copy of what the final vision plan is and what is being presented here tonight. And I'm going to approach this first by saying that one of the committee members from the committee I served on was here earlier and had to leave before this got going, and we passed in the hall, and the comment was, the person held up this thing, and the comment was, burn it. I spoke to somebody else who was a longtime resident of the Village of Ossining when I first came in, and I asked that person, whose opinion I respect very much, what do you think of this? And the comment was, it's watered down. It was much more meat, much more potatoes in the last presentation. And so I am approaching it somewhat on that basis, and you're going to have to forgive me for this. And I am not putting down the work of this committee, these committees, or the task force of which I sat and was part of. I have some questions and comments. When we talk, and I'm going to go through it page by page, I'm going to ask you to bear with me since nobody else seemed to have many comments, so I'm sorry I'm going to take up a little bit of your time. When we talk about the additional elements for Market Square, well, I'm going to back up. I'm going to back up to the very beginning of this, and I'm going to make a comment about public relations and about business development. And this is something very close to my heart, because I think at the last presentation, I think one of the strong points that the Public Relations and Business Development Committee made was that communication was a very vital factor. And when I read this, and I don't know who was responsible for writing it, and I don't know who was responsible for typing it, but this is the image now. This vision plan is the image of the Village of Ossining. And this is what you're hanging your hats on, and we're hanging our future development on. It is full of spelling errors and typographical errors. The wording is convoluted. I don't understand it in some places. People's names are spelt wrong. Words are spelled wrong, punctuation is non-existent. I take exception to that because this is the beginning of your public relations and your business development. Now, when you talk about information and the dissemination of information, and I know that there was a tight budget for Market Square, but one of the most essential things for me, anyway, is to be able to tell people in our community and people coming into the community where everything is. And we talk about adding additional elements in the future, and we're talking about an information kiosk. And I would certainly ask the village board, when you review this vision plan, to please think very carefully about somehow finding money and the ability to put that in immediately, because that's one of the core features of Market Square. We talk about, and I guess I have to go back also and say that I had hoped that the final result was going to take the recommendations that we had made at the last forum and tell us how we were going to get from point A to point B. And I don't see that at all virtually in this document. When you're talking about a management board for Market Square, the Market Square Committee should have, I think, identified how this is, what they are going, what their task will be, how they will be appointed.
I just stop you right there on that one. We actually developed a little brochure that will be parted and given out to people who come here to the administration, to the Recreation Department to get their initial application. And there actually will be, we actually have people who have already volunteered from the old committee to serve on this. It's going to be starting up very soon.
Right, okay.
We couldn't put everything in this report. It'll be about 80 pages, but this certainly is a good outline.
Mayor Cambereri, I disagree with you, because we have, over the course of many, many years and decades, paid for many, many studies that have been done, and some of them are valuable documents, parts of which have been incorporated in the thinking of these committees and in, I'm sure, the final version here. But when you're going to talk about a vision plan, I came expecting, or at least I received it, expecting that I was going to see the plan. You had the vision to put this in motion, but I don't see that there has been any vision in the final documents compilation. And I'm sorry, but I have to express that. And that's my own personal opinion. I don't represent any committee. We're talking about widening. No, I'm going to skip over that, and I'm going to get to some questions that I have. I don't know if Ray, when he had spoken, had touched on the holiday street decorations. But if you did or you didn't, I'd like to know who is going to pay for them. How, I want to see in this document how this committee was going to be appointed, what their task was going to be, and what was going to be done so that the village of Ossining and the town of Ossining wasn't going to be devoid of holiday decorations as it has been in recent years. You talk about removing shrubs from certain parking areas, and in other areas you're talking about putting the shrubs back. When you have a document like this, all of us are close to it. We know our community, and certainly Ray and the task force know what they're talking about. But if you're giving this out to the community, when you talk in terms of lots, B7 and B8, nobody knows where they are. I didn't even know where they were. And so maybe the language could be a little bit more specific to help people identify where these parking lots are. One of the things, the sections was trash collection, and I'm wondering what happened to garbage collection? Because I know that we had talked about a more frequent pickup of garbage. In fact, I had mistakenly thought that the trash was the garbage, and I realized when Ray made the presentation that it was trash collection. But what happened to the rest of the garbage that's an overflow and has been an ongoing problem for many of the merchants in the area and people who have businesses there? When you talk about the new turning lane for Main Street, and the fact that you're going to only permit left turns during non-rush hours. I'm assuming rush hour to you might mean the traffic back and forth to the railroad station, but if you're going to be widening the sidewalk and making a turning lane, how are you going? Are you planning this out so that one is not impacting or impeding the other? And why would you not have a left-hand turn signal and have traffic going even in the morning and the evening hours so that the merchants and the businesses along Spring Street would reap the benefit of people at least going up at all hours of the day? The fact that so many parking spots, of course, are being lost at the beginning of Spring Street, I think negatively impacts on the merchants that are there. But then I realize now that you have a new parking area that's going to have some 84 spaces, and I have a question for you, Mayor Cambereri. Is that going to be a permanent parking area? And if so, does that mean that it can't be developed in the future? Because that was one of the sites that were touted as being developable land.
The parking lot that you're talking about next to the pharmacy?
Yes. No, next to Sam's Cleaner.
Sam's Cleaner.
Yeah, right, that whole strip, right.
Yeah, that's intended to be permanent parking.
Permanent parking.
There is some area that is owned by Mr. Green, which is at the other end, which could be built on eventually, or that could be built on also. It's not written in stone.
Okay. And when also, I'm very confused over the parking lots, and if I'm confused listening to this, and I'm concerned about tourists or transient people coming into the community to shop, hopefully in the future, how are they going to know where they can park, and why are meters not being considered at all for parking, even in some of these lots? God bless you. The creation of the guest day parking, I think that was answered for me. Somehow the businesses or merchants or whomever have to obtain them, and then they give them to their guests. So I would think that was okay. The shrubs screening the parking lots, I also understand that better. That's done for aesthetics.
Are you going to take too much more time?
Yeah.
I would like to have some time for other people to comment or make questions.
Okay. Then I would rather then skip over whatever other comments I have and talk about public relations and business development, because that's the area that's closest to my heart. I found a great sense of disappointment, and it made me come out tonight, because this is a very watered down list, and it doesn't tell me how people who have spent 7 to 9 or 10 months of their life working on this, what now? What do we do with this list here when you're now creating a public relations committee for marketing? I had hoped that this committee would set the guidelines to tell you what needs to be done. It would seem to me that there is no mention here on how you're going to get from point A to point B. And one of the things that was closest to many hearts of people who were involved in this, and myself certainly included, was the fact that we need direct mail marketing. We need a person, a full-time person, to coordinate this. And I understand the partnership with the village and the chamber and the ADO, but somebody still has to be in charge. And I don't see how we're getting anything going in the way of marketing. This doesn't even address anything. You're going to take the work, 10 months' work of people, and now you're going to have another committee, and they're going to now decide what needs to be done. And that makes me wonder whether this indeed was an effort in futility as far as some of us are concerned, because the meat and potatoes of this, Mayor, and you're just going to have to bear with me one more minute, the meat and potatoes of this whole thing is public relations and business development. It got the shortest shrift. You took the recommendations, or some of the recommendations that we made months ago, and you put it in here, and not even in language that I feel is appropriate for wording for a vision plan. And it even upset me, because at the end of the last bullet, there's a comma. And I thought that there must be a page missing. And I was waiting for that sentence to be completed and the meat and potatoes of business development to suddenly appear before my eyes. It's not here, and I can only tell you that as much as I applaud you for having the foresight and the vision and pushing this through, I also have to give this a grade C and ask you, please, go back to the drawing board, rethink what you've asked 40 to 60 people of this community to do, and be somewhat embarrassed for the task force, which you and Mrs. Markowitz-Moses sit on, to be a little bit embarrassed by the final presentation. Thank you for bearing with me.
Thank you. I guess. First of all, we had received here a matrix that came from the Public Relations and Business Development Committee, the final matrix that was given to us and worked out with the co-chairman of that committee. I went through the matrix to say, remember that this report contains many of the recommendations of the Public Relations Committee spread out throughout the report, because other committees also recommended it in their areas. I have not been able to, I believe that each one of the items on this matrix have been dealt with. Further, I think that, especially in this particular area, how to get from point A to point B on public relations, not only have we outlined that, but we've actually begun it. And we have set up a public relations committee. Many of the people from that former committee have volunteered to serve on it. And we set up an ad hoc group to move immediately on some of your recommendations that were made, concerning especially getting Ossining events out to know. We established this Ossining is happening. We're putting up the bulletin boards. Some of the signage recommendations, which you may, were also included in some of the other areas of the report. I think that in this particular area, that we certainly, as I said, not only have we got a means to an end, but we also have begun to develop those ends. I think that as I say, from this meeting, we'll have an additional meeting of the task force, as I pointed out at the beginning, and the recommendations, you could probably write a page on each of the bullets in this report. These are the basic ideas that came forward. I think that if you read through them, there are quite a few very meaty and almost cataclysmic recommendations, like the traffic calming of Route 9, the suggestion as to where a parking area might go. I think that the development, we envision using this Historic Development Committee, actually we're not going to call it a commission, probably a committee, that is already in existence partially. We intend to expand it and to use it to further develop and use the pages and pages of work that was done by the committee, which, as we mentioned, I don't know if you were here at the beginning, all of the initial reports will be included in the final report, so that the committee reports in their entirety will be part of the report itself. The prose that is developed, that is handed out to prospective developers or other people, or in the final form, certainly is going to be finalized, and after the plan has been brought to the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees, as part of this process, has reviewed it. We have to go back and review it in common after the final presentations by the task force, which we will do. I think that the work of the committees, certainly, and especially the Public Relations Committee, as a matter of fact, has certainly been ensconced in this report, and as I said, the committee reports themselves will become part of the final process. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Perillo.
John Perillo, Village of Ossining. I happen to be a lifelong resident of this community, and I was born and raised in the downtown area, so that's a pretty important place for me. It's an important part of my life. I would like to first compliment the board on putting together the great, and I say great, people that they had on all of these voluntary committees. I was privy to meet people on the Public Relations and Business Development Committee, and you had an enormous amount of talent on that particular committee. I would have to say, before I start my comments, Mr. Mayor, if we talk about public relations, everybody up here should smile a little bit. It's not so bad. I mean, it looks like a wake in here.
John, I hope you continue to help me smile.
Okay, I hope so. This is healthy, you know. Constructive criticism is okay. Dialogue is okay. I don't know where to begin, but I have a lot of questions to ask. Vision is a matter of interpretation, and for me, vision is very important because my private life, I thought I had a lot of vision and put it to good use. A lot of the bullet points, I'm a little bit concerned here, because as I read all of these bullet points, I have to say to myself, is this vision, or these items that should be taken care of, or should have been taken care of on a day-to-day basis? You know, when we talk about cleaning sidewalks, repairing sidewalks, repaint parking lines, and all of that stuff, in my opinion, I would say that that's why we have a government, to provide those services. I don't see that as a vision. It's nice to recognize it as a vision now, to incorporate it into our day-to-day life in the community. So my vision is, like I said, probably a little bit different. My vision of a downtown is a central retail place. One of your comments, or in one of your paragraphs on the page that says downtown is up, it says downtown will never be identical to what it was once. And I think that whoever put that in there, or the majority of the board that may put that in there, you threw the towel in when you said that, because I disagree with you. Because all we have to do is take a ride to Terrytown, Irvington, Dobbs Ferry, Briarcliff, Village of Croton, our neighboring communities. So I won't settle for anything less than a central business retail district. And I disagree that because of malls and because of shopping centers was the death knell of our downtown. That's just my opinion. I believe that if you set the stage, you can market it very, very well downtown, and something will happen. So although I welcome all of the other things that may add to the area as far as cultural arts, I think a central business district is important.
John, excuse me 1 second, I want to comment on that. No, I think Thomas, whoever wrote it, is 100% correct. The downtown will never be identical, and long may it be so. You can't go back, John, but to not be identical doesn't mean it can't be a hell of a lot better.
Well, once again, Ms. Markwood, that's a matter of interpretation, and I disagree with that. I want nothing...
You know that there are more empty stores in Peekskill, which has been touted as a new, which they're doing a great job up there, don't get me wrong.
Excellent job.
But there are more empty stores on Main Street in Peekskill and in Tarrytown, and definitely Sleepy Hollow, than there are in Ossining.
In comparison,
right now.
Yeah, but you got to be, that's just a general statement. If I compare the number of buildings, the number of stores, and equate the ratio, I don't think that would hold true.
Well, I think we all agree, as this report said.
But I'm not here to challenge any of
that.
No.
I think we agree that there's going to be more stores attracted to downtown. I just don't think, I think that the theme of it, I think realistically looking at what is there, and what is there are people who have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in a new high-tech industry. And this brings jobs and people downtown. And I think that's a venue. Certainly the restaurants that we have downtown, we can certainly improve on that. We're proposing to improve on that. And bringing more restaurants, more places of entertainment, so that the theme that we're talking about, I think is a realistic one. Obviously more stores will come. We hope more stores will come. I know they will. But we need to bring people down there. And I think that this plan and many of the ideas we have, including, as you say, some very simple things like cleaning it up.
Well, I'm not going to debate...
Which I agree is a matter of government, but certainly the vision process, and even, as you remember, seeing pictures from some of the people who took pictures of the problems we have, which will all be in the report, certainly that is part of what we need to do.
Well, I'm not here to debate, I'm just here to...
No, I'm agreeing with you, actually.
Yeah, okay. And please, I'm not going to be as kind and apologize for anything I say. I'm a grown-up, and I stand behind what I say. Take it or leave it, that's my opinion. I'm a little bit concerned about a couple things. You mentioned that you want to purchase garbage containers in the downtown. It wasn't too long ago, and it may be a long time ago, but I remember it wasn't a too long time ago that we just bought those garbage containers, and I think they were around $400 or $500 a piece. Mr. Fiala, I remember at a board meeting, was waiting for them for a long period of time. If memory serves me right, they finally came in, and I don't know what the number is. I just find that that's almost an insult to me as a taxpayer to spend all of that money for the garbage containers and then find out that we're now going to trash them, and no pun intended, and then put new ones in. That's just, a concern of mine.
Well, it's also a direct garbage plan. Maybe Rocco, could you explain that briefly?
Well, the issue is that it's not that we're going to trash those receptacles. There's other areas in the village that we can use those.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
I mean, actually, the garbage pickup idea that you have in terms of the...
I don't think that's...
No, I'm not on the garbage yet.
Okay.
I'm glad to see about the freestanding signs, similar to communities like Cold Springs have in their quaint little village. Memory serves me right when I was privileged to serve on the zoning board, of the village of Ossining. We were very firm, and we never allowed that to happen. Years ago, when I was growing up, we had freestanding signs on the Crescent, and it's good to see that there's rethinking process that hopefully will incorporate that back into the community. I was always told to say it's a liability problem and an insurance problem, so I don't know if that's all corrected as far as the village goes to protect the community. Let's see. The two-way traffic I have reservation on. If you check with some of the old-timers, maybe possibly, and I don't mean to call him old, is former trustee Bill Brown. He probably remembers when that area of Spring Street between Main and St. Paul's was two-way traffic. And it was the wisdom of a sitting board a long time ago to make it the way it is right now. I don't know if it's workable. If we're talking about the same section, you're going to have to do a lot of parking enforcement down there, because every time I go through there, there's double parking and people talking and stuff like that. So if it doesn't work, you know, it's okay to go back to what works. But please check before you start restriping streets and all of that stuff. We talked about more garbage pickup, and we talked about how we're going to do all this. Nobody had mentioned, are we going to have more employees? And you don't have to answer that. At some point, I'd like to have an answer. The fire that burned out those buildings. I know that the land is privately owned, but it's time to do something with it, and I urge this board to get into a short-term lease, possibly for $1 or $2 a year, or help with the incentives that you talk about on rebates to the property owners for their taxes that may be due, and make that some type of grassy area, planting, something simple, maybe some paths, maybe some park benches that says that, you know, that park is part of the community and we can use it. I don't know what the liability may be on that, but it's certainly worth looking into, because the wall in which the kids had done from the Ossining School District and painted served its purpose, and it's time now to do something else. So I urge the board to look into that. Let's see. The Route 9 parking. Years ago, across from the post office, we had parking on Route 9. It was, I guess, the DOT, when they widened the road, decided that they didn't want to put parking back there, and it was a safety factor, I guess, from people that possibly would jaywalk. I don't know how many cars, or the same cars that go through Ossining, end up in the village of Sleepy Hollow and Terrytown. They allow parking on Route 9, and it's the same state road, Route 9, on both sides of the street, and they also have two-way traffic. So my question is there something happening more in Ossining as far as a traffic study than down by the Tappan Zee Bridge? I would have to say that there's more traffic south of Ossining that allow parking on both sides of the street, and we don't. And I only encourage that because with the possibility of the post office, our present post office, being sold to maybe the private sector, those merchants in there could probably use some parking. So I would try to accommodate that at long term. I'm not saying it should happen tomorrow, but I don't know who you contact from the DOT, but that's something that you should look at.
Yeah, that's part of the plan.
Okay. My concern is things like the old county trust building. We know that part of the building is fell down, and there's some structural things that had to be taken care of to protect the public. My concern also is I hear a lot of rumblings, Mr. Mayor, and we spoke about this, that the village in some shape or form may want to demolish that building, and I strongly oppose that. If you were to do that, I know it's owned privately, and I know that you have the power to order a 10-day notice to repair or demolish. I think that's what it used to go by. That it would be a misfortune for this community to take another building down. Although I like the thought of protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the community, I don't know what legal recourse you have to the current property owners that could make sure that they adhere, number one, to the ordinance, and see what their intentions are. I don't want to bully anybody, but that's been vacant for a long time, since probably the 70s, I would say, the early 70s, when urban removal had come into the village of Ossining. I wish everybody well with this project, and one important point I need clarification that come to my attention. I understand that the site of the new post office, is it true that they found a gasoline storage tank there? Is there any truth to that? Does the village know what's going on down there? There's absolutely no truth to that?
There was remediation that was done preparatory to this whole project by the village, which was paid for by the petroleum company, because there's no statute of limitations on that.
Okay.
The area was cleared. There's no tank that we know of. So.
Okay. My last question is, when you talk about treating facades and in harmony with the character of the Crescent, I saw the plans of the new proposed post office, and although it's better than some of the modern post offices that I've seen, I don't know if that consideration was taken when the plans were approved or accepted. I don't know if the government overrides the community as far as Board of Architectural Review. Finally, I missed one point. Downtown sounds down. Maybe you should consider calling it something else, and this is just a concern. I recommended this to voluntarily to the committee that I had some conversation with, and I thought maybe you should have something like the Crescent Shopping Center or the Crescent Shopping Plaza, and then underneath that have Historical District. And the reason I say that is because not so much for our community, but for the people driving through the community during the week, recognize that we have Arcadian Shopping Center that depicts that there's something going on. Maybe we should go in competition with the Arcadian Shopping Center and label it specifically a shopping center. Although people may, we could at least get them down here to see that something's happening. And maybe at some point something more tangible will happen, and before you know it, we have a village of retail interests. So that's just a consideration that we don't call the downtown anymore. Now, I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but we need to do something to liven it up.
Did you see the Ray's rendering of the sign at in the traffic calming area?
Yes, by Health Smart.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right, yeah.
That'd be a perfect place for the downtown, for the Crescent Shopping Plaza. I'm sorry. After a while, you really don't, I don't even want to hear myself talk.
That's what I read on that sign, yeah. It's not a good idea.
Lastly, I notice, and I was told all the time, that we can't hang banners across Route 9. It's a state road and blah, blah, blah. I don't know if Tarrytown or Sleepy Hollow or Cold Spring or Dobbs Ferry, Irvington has a variance of some sort, because it's the same Route 9, and they string banners across Route 9 to advise the community and the people using Route 9 of current events that are taking place or will take place. I understand that you incorporated bulletin boards, which was a good idea somebody had. And that should give the town a little activity.
By the way, on a temporary basis, we're going to put one of those bulletin boards in the market square, so there will be something immediately there.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'd like to introduce myself, Bob Fedigan from the Wire Mill Industrial Park, the old Hudson Wire. So I'm a relatively newcomer, and wanted to comment on my observations over the last 8 months. I have some experience with a smaller village up in Dutchess County called the village of Wappingers Falls, and it was undergoing some renewal also, but without the benefit of the obvious citizen input that has happened here over the last 8 months. And I want to congratulate you on the process. And really, we can't think in terms of it as an end, only as a beginning tonight. That it is ongoing, evolving, and the fact that the citizenry was brought in so firmly over the last 8 months, after all, they give you, as the political leaders of the community, your marching orders. So I think I'm very happy to hear the kinds of differences of opinion tonight as a newcomer, because I believe that's a sign of a vibrant community. It confirms my faith in the investment I made and will be working at on an ongoing basis. So I look forward to being a part of the community, but I congratulate you and Ray and the new village manager for getting the process going, and I look forward to being a part of it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pettigan. You're doing a good job down there, too. Yes, sir. Bob?
Yes. Bobby Williams, 168 First Street. I was in and out, and but anyway, I just want to know that the vision plan, it should not just stop for that central location. It should go all the way down to all the way down Spring, all the way down State. I know it's going down to the riverfront, but because Austin has something that a lot of communities don't have, and it couldn't be for tourists because we got up the river, and we have the Aqueduct, and we have a free waterfront that is not. We don't like some villages in town say resident only. Our waterfront is open to everybody. I don't see no resident out there, so that is something that brings people into the village and should be also used as a market too, because and also I would think about that we look at the orders out here and seem like there's something missing, because most of the I guess they don't live in this particular downtown revolving. I just don't mean that the plan is bad. That means that when something goes wrong, we're gonna say you people. And so I think about we should at least have more input of the people that live in this area. But I know that you did a lot of imitation, and soliciting to come here. But what I'm trying to say that when things go wrong, we're gonna blame you, and so
like it is. Tell me something I didn't know.
So I just I somehow that we should maybe to bring the community in, because Austin is very diversified, and each year that people are leaving, new people come in, and so some of the ideas that we're doing today won't hold water tomorrow. So my point, my last comment is that we should more reach out to the whole community when you hire people to do these, the project, we got a lot of people that do labor. We got a lot of people that do maybe for teaching how to do tours, bring people in to do you're gonna expand on the tours. so we can do a lot of these jobs that outside people that you might want to hire to do it, but then if you do this, that will be a community type event that we will all share the share the blame for the good and the bad. So I hope that you will continue to invite the community to work with you, and I know that we don't own any property in the downtown area. I won't say own. We're not the majority of the property owners down there. So we're going to have to pay for it, just like the people that live in the area. So at least we should have a little bit say so what some of the money that spend, although some of it is grant money, but it all come back to our pocket, because state or federal, we still paying the same anchor, and so I just hope that the village and its community keep on, inviting us to our input. But sometimes you have to force us to be involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Peter.
Thank you, Bob. One of the things is I do want you to know that you can.
We're just commenting.
One of the things, Bob, is the Economic Development Committee, which is partly a program with the Chamber of Commerce, is open to everyone who wants to participate from the municipality. It is not. It's a partnership thing with all the other organizations, and you're more than welcome. And let me know who to go and recruit, and we'll go and recruit them. Okay, and even the public relations committees and all the rest. Despite the fact that there's a document here, despite the fact that people look at this as the plan, there is no finished plan. I didn't know that Ray was leaving town and that the planning was going with him. Are you leaving town, Ray? Oh, okay. So therefore, we still have the planner and we still have the plan. But this is a formula. What happened here was a group of people to get an insight and to take this insight, put it together, discuss it, try to work something out. And even though some of the things we identified, as Mr. Perlow identified, were common maintenance things that we overlooked, that we allowed to pass over us, out of our sight, and we overlooked them, and they now become projects. That's the reason for having a group of people look at it. No one person sees anything, no one group sees anything. It's the vision of a lot of people that make something happen. And it's a vision of your people and everybody else in this community, no matter who they are, that makes the vision go on. And in the future, hopefully there'll be more participation and more people, so then we don't have the oversights, we don't forget to fix the things that need to be fixed, and we get to come up with even better images and better plans that, like you say, may not be holding water today. The thoughts of the past don't hold water today. The thoughts of today won't hold water in the future, and the thoughts of the future won't hold water in the future beyond. But all those are changes, and those are the progress of mankind, and hopefully this will continue to give us progress in the future.
Thank you, Peter. Just one brief comment. I'd like to thank you, Bob, for your characterization of invitation and openness for this meeting. I know that for all three of the forums, we went, I would call, the extra mile. Also, in soliciting, there has been participation throughout the community in this process. I think we could do better, and I think, as we move on, we'll do better. But I think it was not, as you point out, for lack of trying. I think we have definitely, I know I went out in the rain one time for the last forum. I didn't get sick, but there were a couple of people who were here before that went out with me, door to door, and actually handing out leaflets and trying to be as inclusive as possible, as you say, especially really to the people, the business people who have businesses there, and the people who live in the area. So I think that's very important. Yes, sir.
My name is David Glaser. I've lived in Ossining for about 10 years, and I've served on the Public Relations and Business Development Committee. I only have something briefly to say, and that is that people worked very hard on the Public Relations and Business Committee, especially the two people who are sitting up here, Maureen and Jackie, and to look at what is written here in information and communication elements, it is astonishing. I mean, there are 8 bulleted pieces which could be handled easily by 3 or 4 high school kids. It looks like it's composed by somebody who has very little idea about what information and communications are all about. As for business development, I think you have to look at this as there's a time for things to be done by committees, and there's a time for things to be done by one person who is in charge. And the message that comes across in the business development section is that it's a time for one person to be in charge and to carry these things forward, because a committee will just perpetuate what committees do. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to privilege the floor? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Holly Von Berneth. I live here in Ossining, and I'm an intimate acquaintance with the parking lot behind the Ossining Open Door, because we run a program called New Beginnings out of the basement of the Ossining Open Door. And it just occurred to me as I looked at your photographs of Main Street that while we talked about parking for the customers, it would be difficult for me to sell a commercial space to someone if there was no loading zone or unloading zone along the upper area of the crescent, so that the merchants could actually have a place for their deliveries to come to them, even if they were 15-minute delivery zones. At least there was a place assigned for deliveries for the merchants. It's a little picky point, but it's just something that, you know, that causes problems, because if there is no delivery zone, people double park or park illegally, and that causes problems. The other thing that I had heard about recently was that the Portuguese restaurant, which is now on the lower end, and I can't remember the name of it. Thank you. Is fairly close to a very small church, and there is a state liquor law license problem impending, or with that restaurant being there, ongoing. And I was just curious as to the viability of that church in terms of how it affects the downtown area and the potential for that restaurant succeeding, or any other restaurant succeeding in that area. It was a question that came up and I really didn't know about it. Could you answer or talk to that?
Well, the ABC law is very specific about how many feet not a restaurant, but the sale of alcoholic beverages can be from the portal of the church. It is a church. It's a bona fide church. You don't want to get into what amendment is that now? Deciding what is church and what is not church. Certainly, they are. In fact, the Reverend was here Tuesday night expressing his opinions on the police court facility, for example. It's a viable group of people that are there, and I can tell you that we have been through 3 or 4, and are probably on our 5th try to work something out in terms of finding another location. There have been many other ideas that have come up. So far, we have not been successful. And certainly, if we did something that would force the church from there, I think we would be on very weak grounds and probably very dangerous ground. However, as I say, we have not given up, and I know that it's very difficult. As a person who's in the catering business, I know that the icing on the cake, or the profit margin for many in the food service business, is alcoholic beverage. They can do beer and wine, but they don't have, and it's certainly put a crimp in their style, and for what they wanted to do in other area down there, which they've fixed up very nicely. So we have worked. There are some ideas which I'd rather not go into because they're kind of tentative and part of another church in town that's maybe going to help a little bit. So I think we're trying to help that situation, and I know the past village managers tried, the past mayor has tried. I know Mr. Shue has already begun and had meetings different time with almost as soon as he got here. I've had some play. Ray Curran has been involved. We've all tried to find ways around this problem.